Dot, 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 dot. Good morning, everybody. This is Grant. We're going to be covering breaking the thing holding you back. We're going to cover that this morning. We're going to be covering how the U.S. Air Force is putting us online to be a Type 2 alien civilization. What? And number 3, we're going to be covering who took on the Spark Challenge of finding a moon tree and how they did that. Welcome to State of the Spark. It's a beautiful morning, and we're actually got a lot of cool stuff to cover this morning. I'm super excited. Some of you have reached out last week and let us know who you want interviewed, and we have actually got some of those people lining up right now. So I should have the first interview going this Friday is my desire and goal, but we're going to see about that. Several people have hopped on the bandwagon, so we're going to see if we can't just fit them into the schedule. So how are you doing? And before we cover any of the cool stuff, you know what there's my little coffee spot. I'm already sipping this thing. It's our morning cup of warm cup of gratitude. What are you grateful for this morning? I want to hear from you. Good morning, Jessica. Thanks for the like. What are you most grateful for this morning, my beautiful lovelies? I'm grateful for a lot. We got a big day, me and Marissa. We've got just a lot going on, and I'm grateful that we've got meaningful work that makes an impact. I'll tell you what else I'm grateful for while you're gathering your thoughts, deciding what you're grateful for this morning. I'm grateful for this revelation I had. I've been pondering a lot lately about freedom and thinking about freedom, not hoorah, give me my guns, but including that, not excluding that. But that's not the limit of freedom. True internal freedom, true mental freedom, not just time freedom, not just money freedom, but freedom that begins in the heart. In fact, I know a lot of people chasing time freedom, chasing money freedom, who just don't have it. They don't have freedom in their heart. I have known and worked with very closely, very wealthy people who did not feel free. So even though I often say the Spark, one of the frameworks of freedom is time freedom. Location freedom, time freedom, then comes financial freedom. But that's actually a spectrum, not just milestones. There's a whole spectrum there. And I'm grateful that there's things we do, which we're going to cover today in today's quick lesson on how to feel free and what to do to feel more free. So I'm grateful for some of these revelations going on in my life. What is going on in your life? I want to hear from you. What's making you feel free? What's making you feel grateful? What meaningful work? Oh, I was going to say this about freedom too. If you are pursuing freedom for yourself, you will actually be significantly challenged versus pursuing freedom for others. Pursuing freedom for yourself has some risks. You could turn into a greedy person. You could just chase the money. It could just be all about you. You could develop a cold heart. You could develop an us or them mentality. You don't want to develop an us or them mentality. Freedom comes with those risks, especially pursuing individual freedom. But pursuing individual freedom for the purposes of helping others achieve freedom. Now that's real freedom. Jessica says this today, I'm grateful. Heck yeah, that my watermelon plant bounced back after transplanting yesterday. I was seriously stressing this morning that I killed it, was happy to see it alive when I went out with my headlamp this morning. Little things are sometimes big things. Let me echo this, man. I planted a gardenia in the back. Its name is not Iggy Azalea. Its name is Icky Gardenia. And it's looking a little wilty. And I've watered it a few times and I fertilized it a little bit. So I'm wondering. Good morning, Susan. I hope you're doing great this morning. Susan Hokinson checking in. But Jessica, I'm feeling you. I'm on pins and needles about my gardenia. I probably got to go water it a little bit more, but you can only water it so much if transplant shock takes it out. So, and sidebar, Jessica, let me offer you a challenge to you and Miguel. If you ever get the chance, visit the Rockledge Gardening Center. Marissa and I visited something else I'm grateful for this morning. Marissa and I, we were setting up our rental over in Cocoa, and I just had a blast setting that place up, learning the area. This is why we love investing. We love being in these places, and we love traveling, obviously. And Marissa got us on a Google search like Marissa does and found the Rockledge Gardening Center. And after a stressful day of setting up a rental, it was instant relief. They have it. It's beautiful. It's like being in a botanical garden. It's amazing, and it's very inspiring how they handle bamboo and native species. So I highly recommend you do. And Jessica says, "We'll do. Do it, man. It's awesome stuff." So let's talk about other news. So I am very happy to report that last week I brought a story to you about moon trees. And it's other news because it's uplifting. It's super fun. And you've got to check this out. Laura Gardner, who was one of the highest recommended people when I said who I should interview. A lot of people said Laura Gardner, but Brian Gardner too. Not only is he an extraordinary husband to Laura, but he's also an author, a published author with a lot of interesting stuff. They are part of the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group, which if you're not a part of, shame, know your name. The Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. And I posted a challenge last week. It said, listen, guys, we talked about these moon trees. I'm just going to throw this down. Go travel somewhere and see a moon tree. And for the background, for those who are just now watching who weren't part of that show, moon trees back in 1971, they were part of the Apollo 14 trip. 500 seeds went up there. And when they came back, they actually made it their way around the world to be planted in tons of places. Some have been cut down. Some have been all over. And for those who really want to know, here's the link, boom, where you can actually see. Here we go, boom, boom. You can actually see where these moon trees exist. Well, I told the story last week, and Laura Gardner and her husband, Brian, were on vacation. And they had done me the honor of watching the show, which I'm always so touched when someone says, hey, I saw that show. I had an associate up in Indiana, Amy. She mentioned on one of our meetings in our other business entirely, she mentioned she had watched the show. It was very touching, and I'm always moved. But Laura took it one step further. Laura went ahead and found that link, which I just put in the comments there. If you don't see it, let me put it over here. Boom. She followed that link, and she and Brian found the closest moon tree to them. They were on vacation. They could have done anything. But they decided to take their daughter, I believe her name was Alexis. They hopped in a car, and they drove about an hour and a half or more to locate the nearest moon tree. She took video footage of it and toured it around, so you know they win. We're going to send them 3 Spark shirts. So Laura, if you're watching this, I'm sure you're going to wake up and drink coffee because I tagged you in today's show. Do send me the shirt sizes of you and the whole family. And I'm just so touched. And if you can't tell by my smile, it just made me, I was laughing so hard when she sent me the video that they had taken time. What an adventure. And I will continue to extend these adventures. Man, go out and find yourself a moon tree. Why? Just because. Get in a car, visit a new area, see the neighborhood. They found out that the moon tree was in a courtyard in a local school, and they weren't able to actually touch it, but they sent us video footage of the moon tree. These are seeds and trees that have grown from seeds that have been in space. How cool is that? So if you get a second, man, applaud and celebrate Laura and Brian in the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group for doing something fun, for breaking their habit patterns. You know, you can even get into a trance during a vacation. You know you can. And we're going to be talking about trances and, hint, hint, the law of hypnotic rhythm. That's what we're talking about today. Let's move on with our last piece of other news. How we're becoming a type 2 alien civilization. Let's talk about it. So, long story short, the U.S. Air Force is now doing a project where they're beaming solar energy from space to Earth. And it's insane. It's insane, right? So it's called the Air Force Research Laboratory, or AFRL. They have a project called SPIDER, 2 S's. And it says Space Solar Power Incremental Demonstrations and Research. They're basically lowering everyone's expectations. Like, hey, everybody, chill out. We're doing this. The person says this. They said, ground-based solar, while seemingly an attractive option for solar energy, is limited by area, the size of the solar collectors required, and climate, as well as what they don't mention is atmosphere. Atmosphere actually filters a lot, and it makes for a less efficient solar panel. The narrator goes on to say, but if the solar panels were in orbit, they could have unfettered access to the sun's rays, providing an uninterrupted supply of energy. Sounds like a great idea. You could conjure up visions of a death ray, right? Like an actual James Bond T-he death ray. I mean, that could be going on. But what it really does is this. It moves us down the line of the Kardashev scale. That's a Kardashev scale. Let me give you that link. Nikolai Kardashev was, I believe, a Russian theorist. And they created a scale that ranks the type of civilizations we might encounter based on how they source their energy. So a type 1 civilization is also called a planetary civilization. We can use and store energy available on our planet. But as we come to the end of it, and a lot of us know, we're hitting the edges of our biome. We have strip mined nearly as much as we can strip mine. We can invent only so much nuclear power. We're taking power from wind, available energy in the form of wind. We're taking power from water, available energy in the form of, I guess, tidal shifts and kinetic energy from there. We're sourcing so much energy from so many places. We are an energy-hungry species. So a type 1 civilization is a species that pulls all of its energy from the planet. And a lot of theorists have said it would be millennia before humans could actually source their energy anywhere else. Now, the type 2 civilization is a civilization called a stellar civilization. And this is a civilization that can use and control energy at the scale of its planetary system or its solar system. And we are entering that era. As long as we can actually start collecting space-based solar panels from anywhere, we can actually power and send Wi-Fi to any point in our solar system. This is huge. In fact, oftentimes when we think we've seen an alien civilization at a distant star, it's because we see the way the star blinks. They believe that it's a dynasphere, basically, and that's a sphere that actually is comprised of solar collecting panels that surround the star. It's a very interesting thing. I'll give you the link here for Nerd Alert. There's type 3 civilizations, type 4 civilizations, and type omega civilizations. I'm sure you could research that on your own, the Kardashev scale. But it is very interesting because if we could collect solar power from space, we could actually have that land back. That's great. But have a much more efficient solar collection. Because right now, I think solar panels collect at an efficiency of 11 to 17%, depending on how clean they are. What if we could actually have 100% collection on solar panels? It'd be humongous. So there's that Nerd Alert link. There you go. Let's talk about the thing holding you back and how we're going to break it. Let's talk about it. So a lot of you know that it's difficult out there. It's scary. Whether you're an employee trying to hire, it's difficult to be out there hiring today. Whether you're an employee trying to find meaning and fulfillment in the world, it's difficult out there. If you're a young person thinking about college and all the bad news about college debt right now, you're wondering, is this even worth it unless I'm a STEM student? What does it matter? And a lot of young people don't feel the sciences. They feel the humanities. So if you're a young person looking at prospects of more than just a job, but a career, like even coming up with a career seems like a joke. A lot of you just want trades or skills. You just want to do something. You want to do something meaningful. Well, we know that the pain of just going on is quite difficult and challenging for a lot of people. And it seems like each day brings crazy new challenges. Another shooting, another shooting, another shooting. In America, what do we look like to the rest of the world? In the rest of the world, what's going on in India? Notice a lot of my other news doesn't touch on these topics because I want to bring hopeful frontiers to Spark citizens. But if we were to just do an honest assessment, we are inundated with messages that make it really difficult to hope to go on. So we numb ourselves. We numb ourselves with binging. We numb ourselves with food. We numb ourselves with fantasies that escape is better. We just want to escape the system. We numb ourselves with workaholism. If I just work hard enough, I'll work my way through it. And so in the midst of all this, we've actually made the matters worse because we've become our own worst enemy. We are very skilled at numbing ourselves. Now, is there anything wrong with technology, Netflix? No. You guys know if you've been here for a minute, I believe these things are absolutely fine. What's wrong is the hypnosis we put ourselves under. What's wrong is when we do things to the point of numbing our highest selves, our conscious selves. You see, we begin to lack when we hypnotize ourselves. We lack ideas on how to break free or the will to even conjure these ideas. And let me pause and say this. Good morning, Daryl Ash. Thanks for the like, man. I hope you're doing great today. Let me say this. I want to pause for a minute and say this. If you know someone who's been dealing with nihilism, hopelessness, tag them, share this video with them, because I think it will change their life. Like the video. Like, I live on the likes, I live on the shares. This show thrives only if you share it with somebody who might need an encouraging word, or at least a new pattern, a new thing to break their hopelessness. So let's get back to this. So when the world is tough out there, we develop mechanisms by which we numb ourselves. Part of me doing this show is to break my mental habit patterns, to always have to come up with a new idea. And this is where the ADD people probably have a slight advantage, maybe not a big one, but we're always looking for new stimulation. And that means we're always creating and generating new patterns. The number one skill for young people today, as brought forth by psychologists, is the ability to deal with ambiguity, the ability to deal with a changing landscape, an ever-changing landscape. We used to talk about a paradigm is not the territory, it's a map of the territory. And we taught in the early 2000s and then the mid 2010s is that it's a good skill to be able to paradigm jump, to be able to deal with new maps of the territory. The new skill today I present for your consideration is to be able to operate in a way where the landscape is always changing. And this moves us from operating on a paradigm or a map to operating with a set of principles and skills. Message to a young person out there, if you just hear that today in today's message, the number one paradigm to have, the number one equipping you can do to navigate this world and succeed at freedom. You're not going to look at careers the way we did unless you're a STEM or science major. So it's important not to just have a paradigm. It's important to be able to jump paradigms and to deal with ambiguity and to deal with an ever-changing world and still execute on principles and skills. And those skills are people-oriented skills. So that's my sidebar. But we end up putting ourselves in some form of hypnosis. Let's have another child. I'll just get through. I'll come up from air when my kids are 18. Let's do an improvement on the house, even though there's no technical ROI on it. Let's binge another show. Let's just avoid. Let's go for another drink. I'm not against any of those things in and of themselves, but I believe that I can tell behind your eyes when you have that glistened look of you've checked out to numb yourself. And I know I'm the master of numbing myself, but I'm also practicing on how to be aware of when I numb myself. Jared, good morning. Thanks for the like this morning, sir. Try to become aware of when I am numbing myself. But when we numb ourselves, we lack ideas to break free. We lack thoughts on how to enliven ourselves and enliven others. We lack the desire for any of these things, and it's probably our weakest moment ever. We lack the ability to see breakthroughs, and breakthrough and freedom just seems a million miles away when we're numb, when we're at the bottom of that next pint of ice cream, when we thought I should go for a hike or a walk or a workout, but just didn't, and sit and do that other thing instead, that numbing of ourselves. Your life might even be full of good things you choose. So maybe I've got a workout, but it's actually been the same workout now for 3.5 years and you haven't made any progress. You might even be good at your job and moving up. These could be good things, but you still feel stuck. I heard the definition, and I've said it once, I've said it a million times, and thank you for watching the show for this. Sacrifice. It means the definition of sacrifice, and I heard this from my mentor, Bob Proctor. Sacrifice means letting go of things of a lower nature to make room for things of a higher nature. Letting go of the good to make room for the best. And so your life might be full of good things, but you're still hypnotized. You might be going to the gym to run away from your issues. You might be moving up in your business and just working hard and really doing good over there, but because you're avoiding something at home. This is what we know, and you've heard me say this, the law of hypnotic rhythm. We call them habits, but there's something about them that no matter what, we just get lulled. The law of hypnotic rhythm. A habit becomes a habit when you engage in a behavior to which you devote no conscious attention. Most people say that applying personal discipline can change habits. You and I both know that sheer willpower can only get you so far. So what do we do about this? We've talked about hypnotic rhythms before. I'm here today to emphasize to you that I love Mondays because they're a pattern interrupt to the numbing of the weekend. And though you might wake up with a sense of fear and dread, you should channel that into hopping out of bed and going after it, because that helps you break the pattern. And the dread is not really dread of the day. It's the fear of what the day holds, the unknown. We know that when we're at the bottom of another pint of ice cream, we're at the end of another series that we binged, we know that we could just hit play and it's predictable and it's stable and it's secure. Oh, please go, keep going. But when Monday comes around, when you have a case of the Mondays, it's most likely because you are unaware of what comes next. But I'm here to tell you, that's the exciting part. So let's talk about pattern interrupts. How do we break this numbing cycle? Pattern interrupts. You have to interrupt your pattern. Willpower is one thing. I'm just going to change my workout. I'm just going to pull myself up on my bootstraps and not have too many drinks. Willpower is limited. Willpower will only get you so far. Willpower will only take you so far. So it's more important that you break patterns. Now, it's tough to break a habit. It's not as tough to break a pattern. So let's talk about this. How do you break a pattern? So breaking your routine. So here's an example. I announced last Friday, that Friday would be the last day that I commit to just showing up with the same old thing for this show. Now we might have done a similar show. I announced it Thursday. We did a similar show Friday and a similar show today. But you're going to see, there's work going on in the background, though it hasn't changed much yet. It freed me. When I announced I'm going to break this pattern now, I've been doing 173 shows in the same pattern. I need to break the pattern. I need to break a little bit of the time. I need to give myself some flexibility. Why? Because I got to shake things loose. I got to access new ideas. This morning, I was in a pattern. I was doing my stretch, and then I was going to go do my normal study in my shower. Marissa showed up and said, hey, I'm doing a new pattern. I'm going to go for a walk around the lake this morning instead. All right, Grant, do you want to go? Well, I don't. I want to do the same pattern. As soon as I saw that, I said, no, I'm going to go. Not for any reason other than I wanted to change my pattern and how I approach the show. I've got to. And if no show came out of it, I wouldn't have done a show this morning. But I had a new thought process about pattern breaking. That's actually where the show came from. A new idea came to this show to me this morning because I took my own medicine and broke my pattern. That's a living example. So it comes down to breaking your routines. Katie Yates says, setting a clear plan has us excited to get out of bed this morning. A clear plan. And I'm willing to bet this clear plan is a fresh take on how they're going to be tackling their business. Absolutely. So some examples of pattern interrupts in the wild, and then I'm going to give you 3 steps to break your pattern really quick. So a few examples of some massive pattern interrupts that I have noticed over time are this. Number 1, Tony Robbins. People often ask, why does Tony Robbins swear so much? He always gets criticized for swearing. Well, if you watched his show, the documentary about him called I Am Not Your Guru, he answers this and he says, I'm trying to break people's patterns. When someone is used to everyone being polite and everyone being nice, but you come in there and drop the F-bomb, it makes everyone pause and listen. Now, he's mastered the ability to pattern interrupt without offending. He might offend them, but to bring them back to the conversation without chasing them away. But Lord knows, Tony has chased plenty of people away. But he's been willing to do that because he knows the value of breaking people's patterns. If you think about Tony Robbins, the show, the lights, the music, even the cost of going to a Tony Robbins event is a pattern interrupt. When was the last time you spent $5,000 just to go to an event? I know Adam Welch, who has been just explosive with Spark Bookkeeping, and I can't wait to connect with today. He's been explosive, but I don't even think he spent $5,000 on a single event in a long time, if at all. The cost itself is a pattern interrupt. That's how important it is. Yes, Tony and his team makes money. Yes, all the people there have to get a paycheck. Yes, the event costs money. In fact, Tony Robbins' profit margins on his events are very narrow. That's just what it costs to put a pattern interrupt on. Why do you walk across coals at a Tony Robbins event? A pattern interrupt. You're so afraid, and there's a major pattern that goes, I'm not going to walk across coals. You break these patterns, new thoughts, new ideas. What am I capable of begins to occur. Another type of pattern interrupt, what Buddhists do. Buddhists have a thing called koans. It's little goofy questions like this. What is the sound of one hand clapping? And they give these riddles. What with the sound of one hand clapping? They give these riddles to Buddhist students to ponder. And they're questions that have no closed loop. So a student never actually answers the question, which creates a space of mind. Another Buddhist technique is this Om chanting interrupted with a clap. It goes like this. Om. And they say this, there's about 7 sounds that happen in an Om, and it's basically A-E-I-O-U. But when they clap, it's the difference. You hear the clap, it interrupts the pattern, but then there's the silence afterwards. Buddhists are looking for the silent moment. They're listening for the silent moment. Another example of pattern interrupt, nearly everything Marissa and I have done, at least everything big, has started because of a pattern interrupt. We went to the Dominican Republic because we wanted to pattern interrupt the normal expectations people had on our life. We were working in the Dominican Republic and Haiti in missions to live a life of purpose, which we saw so many young people at our same age at the time not going for. Pattern interrupt. We wanted to interrupt the social programming from that. Whenever we've taken our massive road trips, these massive road trips have been, hey, we need a break, and we need that break to be long enough for our brains to not only break patterns of fitness, gym, where we go to coffee, what we do for fitness, what we think about. Ultimately, what we think about, that pattern has to be broken. So we would take these 6 and 8 week long road trips. Our trip to Breckenridge, Marissa was going to do her hike. I needed to break patterns about our business. Even down to our investment property. We could purchase investment property here in Lakeland, but we needed to break our patterns of what resources were available, what money was available, what joy was available. Can we be by the water or not? What should the price of a home be? We can get stuck in a bubble here in Lakeland, and though Lakeland is phenomenal and has been a huge blessing for us, part of this was we needed to break our habit patterns on what even investing looks like. Examples of pattern interrupts. Can you give me an example of a pattern interrupt you have intentionally done lately? While you're thinking about it, let me give you 3 ways to break your own hypnotic pattern, 3 ways to put a pattern interrupt into your own life. Number 1, first, identify your hypnotic pattern. Now, you might know immediately what your hypnotic patterns are, but it might not. Well, I go to work. Is that a hypnotic pattern? It's my job. What do I do about that? I run my business. Like I wake up every day and punch a clock and clock into work. Like, is that a problem? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's your path to work. Maybe you just walk from the bedroom to your Zoom space, your home office. Maybe it's when you work out. I'm used to working out at 4 a.m. My whole life has been built around that for a long time. Maybe it's where you go for dinner. So you need to identify a hypnotic pattern. And a hypnotic pattern, how you identify a hypnotic pattern is this. When you have an inspiration, when you are inspired to do something new, and then you say to yourself, yeah, but if I did that, then X, Y, and Z would get bumped. Bump it. Yeah, but if I did that new study routine, think of Brian Gardner, if I started writing that chapter at 4 a.m, then my workout wouldn't be done. And I always do my workout. Hey, you don't have to interrupt it for life. Interrupt that pattern. Hey, I have to clock in at work 7 a.m. every single day. Therefore, I can't go for that walk around the lake. Interrupt that pattern. Try to go to work at 7:30. Well, here's a living one. Hey, I do this show at 6:30. Therefore, I can't actually go to the gym for my workouts. That's why I announced last Thursday. Forget it. I'm changing the pattern. So I know I'm going to do an interview this week, and I know that probably Friday, because we have some things we're going to do on the investment property, probably Friday, I will, instead of this show, I will actually probably, I'm not guaranteeing this, release the recording of the interview I do during the week. That's going to happen, and I'm going to schedule it, I think, roughly for 6:45. and interrupt the pattern. Why? Because if it was all about the show, then I couldn't get done what I need to get done on the investment. And that's got to get done. Interrupt the pattern. What bigger goals do you have that you need to? So identify, and how you identify patterns every time you say, I'm going to take this inspired path. Not like, ooh, shiny new object, but an inspired path. But you say, yeah, but I can't because, write that down. You don't have to break that pattern forever. Maybe you go back. Ooh, I shouldn't not work out at 4 a.m. Like that's just like sanity for me. Okay, great. I got to do something about it. We found that painting for me is very cathartic. So as we look to our next investment, we're always kind of assessing, hey, well, how and where and how could I get some painting done? Where and how could I have a good workspace? This work office has been phenomenal. It's been a luxury, but it's been phenomenal. But I have habit patterns here. So when we look at new investments, we say, hey, man, some of these things, yes, we test getting away from, but some of it, when you test getting away from, you realize I really need it. That's part of pattern interruption. Sometimes with pattern interruption, what you realize is, no, the pattern is very beneficial. It's called stress testing, right? So number one, identify the hypnotic pattern. Number two, break the pattern, but at least in 2 ways. Let me give you a visual way to memorize this. You know, when you were a kid and you were like, I'm Mr. Adventure, and you started driving, you're like, I wonder if this dude is following me. The best way to shake a tail. How do you shake someone who you think is tailing you in a car? What's the rule? 2 left turns. It's so unlikely because 2 left turns means you're going back the other way. And the probability that someone is also going back the other way is very, very low. Take 2 left turns. So it's the same with breaking a habit pattern. And the example of your path to work, maybe your path to work, well, I would go this other way. Maybe I stop by that new coffee shop that I heard about. No. I'm just going to go to work this way because it's easier. Break that pattern. It's a small pattern to break. Do this. Pick a new path to work and stop at the new cafe and order an entirely new drink, even if you hate it. Do it for the sake of doing a new pattern. I always order this. Well, mix it up. Shake that pattern. So find a new path to work is breaking that pattern at least once, and then stopping at the new cafe breaks that pattern twice. Meet a new local. Talk to somebody. Pick a new time to work out. If when you work out is your pattern, I got to work out at 4. Pick a new time to work out and do an entirely different workout routine. And the first few are going to be clunky, but that's not why you're changing. You're changing to interrupt the pattern. When it comes to like where we go to dinner, choose a new place for dinner. Don't just ask your spouse, where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? Instead, forget that. Just choose a new place and order something entirely off your normal palate. Don't break your diet or all that mess, but just something else. I normally order things like this. Let me order it like that. I do believe that to break a pattern, you've got to break it twice. It's one thing to say, well, I get up at 4 for the gym, so I'm going to get up at 5. All right. And then I try to do the same routine. But if you try to do the same routine at 5, you're going to feel stressed and it's just not going to work. Why not go to work? Why not work out at 4 in the afternoon or 6 at night? Or why not just revert to working out at home and jogging, and then on the weekend do a full body blast? You got to break that pattern twice. So number 1, identify the hypnotic pattern. Number 2, break the pattern, but at least twice. And number 3, choose a longer term pattern interruption. Now, what I mean by this is this. It depends on the size of change you need to make. If you're just feeling monotonous, change your path to work. But if you need a massive shift, if something big is brewing in you and it's been brewing in you and you've been journaling about it and you've been talking to your spouse about it and you're really ready to take this next level based on the size of change you need to make, choose a goal that extends that far into the future. Marissa and I knew we still know that there are massive changes we need to make. Not because anything's wrong, because we're not there yet. We haven't arrived at our goal. And what got us here is great. But here's our quote. This is a Spark Citizen quote. Memorize this. What got you here won't get you there. Usually, what got you here won't get you there, because what got you here introduced new problems. And Einstein said you can't solve problems in the same paradigm which you had when you identify those problems. So what got you here is great. New problems. Great, I got new problems. I need to be a new person. So we looked for an investment in another city. And we already have our eyes on yet another city. It's opened us up. We got an eye on fitness levels and fitness changes that we're making, and we've got to do those differently. So we're going to reschedule how we actually hit the gym and what we do in the morning versus what we do in the afternoon. This is why 75 hard has worked so well, because it's longer than the small changes. Hey, change your path to work. Great. I've mixed it up. I've met new people. I'm shaking things loose. I'm having new thoughts. Cool, man. But if you need massive change, if you really need to take the next level, if you really need to bump yourself up, challenge yourself with this. Take a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat up in Jasper, Georgia. I think it's Jasper. Look it up. 10 days of silent meditation, 10 days. That's just 2 weekends in a week. It's a long time for most people to get away for silence. Yeah. But if you need big changes, huge pattern interrupts, start with 10 days and then go into something like 75 hard. 75 hard is great because it's longer than, hey, I'm just going to give it hard for 2 weeks. You're not going to change any habits in 2 weeks. But 90 days is like a quarter of the entire year. It sounds like forever. And we've heard of 90-day sprints, but it's just a little too long psychologically. 75 hard has very clear rules, very defined rules. And it's open too. Like, I don't care what your diet is, but pick a diet and stick to it. I don't care what it is. Pick one thing and just stick to it for 75 days and just go hard. It is difficult to go 75 days, but that habit has been good for people in so many areas of life because they actually are rehearsing pattern interruption. And they've tricked themselves, which is a good trick. This is only going to go on for 75 days. Marissa's long hikes, hour-long road trips. If you wanted to be bold, and me and Marissa set this goal and we passed it up a little bit, but we came close. Steven Sagmeister, a designer, Sagmeister, I'm always saying his name wrong. He had a philosophy that you work 7 years and you rest on the 7th, 1 year sabbatical every 7 years. Now, we've been back from the Dominican Republic since 2013, and our goal was in 2020 to take a sabbatical. Well, hey, pandemic, and our life wasn't set up for it. We were getting close, and we have been stacking our life this entire time so that we could take longer and longer stretches away from work or at minimum working remotely, and we've been able to do that largely. But we've got new problems, right? Not more money, more problems, but more people, more challenges. And so we have to ask new questions. But Steven Sagmeister had a 1 year sabbatical every 7 years. Why? Well, why would you wait till you're 60 and unable to hike a mountain to go visit that mountain, which is Marissa's philosophy? I'm going to do my long hikes now, and we've taken our long road trips. You do got to think about your future, but you can come up with these ideas when you break your patterns. So number one, identify your hypnotic pattern. And this is the thing that comes up. It says, yeah, but whenever you're inspired to do something new, this resistance comes in and goes, yeah, but we always do it like this, and these things won't happen if I don't. Number two, break the pattern, but at least in 2 different ways. Break it into, ensure it's done. Break the pattern, but at least in 2 different ways. And number three, choose a long-term pattern interrupt if you have big changes you need to make. Something more sustainable, something more challenging. Hey, listen, this is where cold tanks come from. Cold tanks are a way for you to break the sympathetic way your brain works and goes, oh, it's going to be cold, so don't do it. Well, it's good for you, so do it. But it's going to be cold. Okay, I'd rather just be warm in bed. I only take hot showers. Me and Marissa, we spent the weekend at our investment property taking care of it. And we only showered when we went to the beach to go surfing. Cold water, it was about 75 degrees, relative cold to most people's hot showers. So we showered there. And then we worked on the house a bit more. We showered at the beach again. And then we realized we went the whole weekend taking quote unquote cold showers. And we felt great. We felt invigorated. Jared Yates says this. Let's see here. He says, for me, the daily grind of getting up and going to work was an inhibiting pattern for me, even though it had been a powerful point of stability, which we need in it. These are good things, right, bro? Of course they're good. That pattern was massively broken recently in relation to my job, and I am now going through the joyful and painful process of relearning and reemerging my business. You're so right, man. This is great. I appreciate that, man. But this is a living, breathing thing. Like when you were a kid and you quit your job for the first time ever, that was huge and scary, but you felt free. When I moved to Sarasota as a young man, I was addicted to how free I felt to cut all ties. When we moved from Vero Beach to Lakeland, I was freaked out. I started visiting coffee shops and meeting people, and my worldview began to expand. And many of you are here because I took a pattern interrupting leap back in 2006, 2007. Same with getting married. I thought I was going to be single. Huge pattern interrupts, but we need to wield them. If you never build the stability Jared's talking about, if you never build a foundation of stability, you're actually setting yourself up for aging failure. Me and Marissa could live in an RV the rest of our lives. We really could. But what happens when we're 60 and 80 and we have to replace a hip? Or one of us gets sick and we have to have true doctor care. Like we don't want to be a drain on the system then. So we have to take care of ourselves. So we do need to build some degree of financial stability. But if we just get hypnotized, if we self-hypnotize, I'm talking about something beyond habits. Habits are good. They can be good and they can be bad. I'm talking about hypnosis, numbing, checking out because of stability. Tony Robbins says this: we both need stability and spontaneity. We can never build stability out of spontaneity. It's very difficult, but we can always build spontaneity out of stability. But that just makes things a little too easy. And it's true. That's human nature. It's true. That statement is true. But every now and again, we've got to disrupt the entire system because we need new paradigms. We need new ideas. We need new agency, how to act in the world so we can take a new level. And I encourage you, identify your hypnotic patterns, big or small. Start with a small one. Break the pattern, but at least in 2 ways. And then once you have benefited from that and you've journaled new ideas and you've talked to your partner about new ideas, then choose longer term pattern interrupts. Things that can really disrupt. And fitness is easy. Fitness is a good one to start with. 75 hard, a great thing to start with. Me and Marissa are doing our own modified version right now called native medium to hard. Well, we got to do something. And we're going to do it together. And you and I are going to do it together. Hey, if you want to keep this conversation going, listen, my friends, visit us. Visit us at the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. Share this video with a friend who might need it, someone who might need to be encouraged that that they've just been self-hypnotized for too long. Jump forward. You don't have to give them all the other news. Jump forward in the video to where we started. But encourage someone today. Encourage yourself today. Go kick butt. Interrupt your patterns today. Come up with new ideas. And listen, share them with us at the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. Share it with us. But no matter what you do today, remember to ignite your life of explosive